In the meantime, we've learnt a lot about the huge failures in Victoria and hotel quarantine. Now, of course, I defer to the expertise of people like Peter Credlin on things like this. She's done the hard yards to tell you about the story. But well done to the front page of the Australian newspaper today. The reportage that they were able to do about the many endless failures inside hotel quarantine in the most recent version, which of course led to a lockdown which punished regional Victoria where there were 0 cases, and it was all 5 local government areas in suburban Melbourne, one bit of suburban Melbourne. But there was a lot in that reportage today. Here's part of the highlights from Julia Bradley.
A News Corp investigation has revealed dozens of breaches of Victoria's hotel quarantine program between January and April this year. According to official documents, 2 breaches involved Martu Bush, General Manager of COVID-19 Quarantine Victoria's Infection Prevention and Control. Documents reveal he refused a mandatory COVID test while leaving the Intercontinental Hotel last month. He was asked by a member of the Defence Force to take the test and, according to the report, responded, "I'm head of IPC and I override that protocol," or words to that effect.
And I formed the conclusion overnight that it would be appropriate that Mr Bush be stood down.
Extraordinary, right? Perfect insight into the arrogance of the people who've been put in charge when empowered by governments who are completely unaccountable for their own failures about how they ran hotel quarantine the first time around, who pay twice as much for legal advice than the inquiry had to investigate them. It's a stitch up. Also, the whole reason about the nebuliser and what was allowed and not allowed, well, guess what? The patient X, Mr. Zero, well, he was right. The report showed that it was not true, that this was the cause of that most recent lockdown, but they just keep marching on. But believe it or not, tandem to all of the stuff that we've learnt today, one of the most despicable things that happened as a result of the Victorian lockdown was that kids didn't go to school for month after month after month, despite the fact that you know, I know, and all the evidence show that they are not at risk of the coronavirus, nor is it being spread amongst teachers. So it comes out today, yet again, more evidence about what the hangover from these COVID lockdowns are. The ones that could keep going till 2022 and fully empowered by the Constitution, yet apparently the Constitution doesn't protect us from stopping COVID cases from coming in from overseas. Some high school students haven't developed because of their year in lockdown. The clinical psychologist said today to The Age that some schools are saying to me, well, it's almost like the kids haven't kind of developed. The same bloke says that the students talked about being disconnected. They certainly talk about being more fearful and anxious. They are certainly not filled with a sense of achievement about eradicating COVID-19. So shame on you. Shame on you, Daniel Andrews. Shame on you, Greg Sutton. Shame on you, everyone who I stand with Dan and cheer these people on. Shame on the half of the public service in Victoria that won't go back, sorry, Brett Sutton, that wouldn't go back to work right now. Shame on that guy who somehow says, oh, I'm above COVID testing. Shame on the people who went, we can't be asked policing what's happening in Melbourne so people in regional Victoria can pay. And shame on every single person who thought it was completely okay to leave people alone in their homes for months, to tell people they couldn't go to school, and kids that are now going to be afraid of everything. This joint sometimes, these people don't care what we think, and that should frighten the living out of you. But sadly, so many people walk around with the blinkers on, sucking on their thumb and hoping that daddy government will fix everything. Daddy government is the problem. How many times? They made the decisions that led to 800 people dying. They made the decisions that meant that there was another lockdown. They made the decisions that ruined an entire year of education for kids.